I want to know how the race could go, how I don't want the race to go, and in a perfect world, how the race should go.
If you can see it here and you have the courage enough to speak it, it will happen. I see these shots, I see these sequences, and I don't shy away from them.
Predicted the scenarios in my head already, visualize what's going to happen. Power of visualization. I obviously try to play the match in my mind before I go on the court. Allowed me to come back and save match points and win this match.
A lot of times people believe in certain things, but they keep to themselves. They don't put it out there. You truly believe in it. If you become vocal with it, you are creating that law of attraction and it will become reality.
Hello and welcome to the Exponential Athlete Podcast. If you're new here, my name is Ken, and my mission is to study the greatest athletes of all time to uncover the secrets of their success. You just heard from a couple of the greatest athletes of all time, Conor McGregor, Michael Phelps, and Novak Djokovic. They were all talking about visualization and how important it has been for their preparation and for success. I got really obsessed with studying visualization when I interviewed Bob Bowman, Michael Phelps' coach. Bob talked about the in-depth process Michael would use when he was visualizing for a race. He talked about how Michael would also visualize the things that he didn't want to happen so he could reconcile them. To me, this really opened something up. I became fascinated with the topic. I read all sorts of books. I listened to podcasts, watched YouTube videos. And honestly, I was a little disappointed with all the resources that I found. So a lot of the topics that were touched on were really focused on manifestation and the law of attraction. And there wasn't really a scientific basis for the guided imagery or the visualization practice. On the other hand, there were some really good resources in academic literature that talked specifically about how athletes could visualize the step-by-step process, the nuts and bolts, but they were, at least for me, very difficult to interpret. They aren't something that you'd pick up between practice and get a lot of value out of. You really had to dig in, you had to go through all the scientific words, and it was pretty complex even for me. So what I wanted to do was put together a series focused on how-tos of visualization and guided imagery practice for athletes. This is a no-nonsense, why is visualization important? What types of visualization are out there? How do you do it effectively? And then let's go through some case studies. To me, this is the best service that I can provide around visualization. I think it's a heavily undervalued skill and tool. And I'm grateful that I can bring it to the forefront and talk about it, again, hopefully intelligently. Before we get too deep into it, let's talk about the benefits of visualization as a performance tool. Again, as I'd mentioned, visualization, guided imagery, motor imagery, these are all largely synonymous talking about visualization. There's been just so much scientific research on it, and it suggests that it really does work. I do want to be clear that visualization and just visualizing your performance is pretty much never going to be better than you actually practicing. But combining visualization with practice is going to have you see greater returns than just one or the other. So what can we expect from visualization? So the first thing is improved skill learning and performance. So if you're visualizing throwing a baseball, you're generally going to throw that baseball more effectively. If you're visualizing yourself shooting a free throw in an important part of the game, you're generally going to do that more effectively as well. Visualization has also been shown to increase strength. So notice I didn't say that it's going to increase your muscle mass. I haven't seen any literature that suggested that was the case. On the other hand, there's some research that suggests that the actual strength mechanism has improved. So the most famous study is a finger strength study, where people who just visualized this finger movement pattern showed a 22% increase in strength, while the people that physically strengthened their fingers showed a 30% increase in strength. I believe the control group only showed a 5% increase in strength. And so there's a significant difference in the visualization as well as the actual strength training pattern. But it isn't that the muscles in the finger got better, it's that the movement got more efficient. So an example would be is if you were bench pressing and you had really bad form, you probably wouldn't be able to throw up as much weight as if you had really good strict form with the bench press. So what the visualization does is it doesn't necessarily help you like improve your form, although it could. It actually just helps the movement to flow more naturally. So you get the practice of the muscles working together more efficiently rather than the muscles actually getting stronger. There's non-physical or like performance related sides to visualization as well. There's also a ton of psychological benefits. So the first is improved confidence and self-efficacy. So in all the research I've looked at, being more confident also makes you a better athlete. So it can help you build like a performance template for how you want to perform in a certain scenario. It can help you remember or create scenarios where you're really doing your best, where you're conquering your challenges, and you're able to really play at the highest level because you believe in yourself in a certain way. It also can improve your decision making and your performance under pressure. So there's a lot of elements of confidence, but also of practicing and visualizing challenging scenarios that you can overcome. There's also a host of other benefits around reducing performance anxiety, recovering from the yips, recovering from injury. There's a ton of very specific use cases that we're going to have a lot of fun going into as well. Now, how does visualization work? So visualization isn't some magical process, and I could go into all of the neuroscience around the different brain areas that make visualization effective. But at the most basic level, this is what I would like to hear. Visualization works by a mechanism called functional equivalence. So the idea is that when we're doing something physically and when we're visualizing it, we're activating the same parts of the brain, we're activating the same neural pathways, and those neural pathways strengthen by doing that. Your brain, for the most part, cannot tell the difference between a vivid visualization and reality. Again, these same brain areas are activating, although when you visualize, in all honesty, the brain is not recruiting as many neurons down that same pathway, but it is exercising the pathway. The big takeaway here is that visualization is a legitimate training. You are training the same things when you visualize as when you practice, just at a lesser degree. So there's multiple types of visualization, and they're useful for different things. At a high level, there's two main types. So there is something called cognitive visualization, which is a focus on a skill or technique. So think of Tiger Woods visualizing his golf swing and trying to improve it, right? Another type of cognitive visualization is tactical or strategic. So the idea there would be a LeBron James thinking about how the play is going to unfold on the court. On the other hand, you have motivational. So this is a focus on internal state, a psychological state, which would be confidence or some form of emotional state. You could think of Michael Jordan essentially visualizing his opponents winning, and that would make him so mad and get him so fired up. In The Last Dance, Michael Jordan's constantly using this tool, talking about how someone wronged him in some way, and he's visualizing how bad it is, and it's just firing him up. It's getting him so amped up, and he just keeps saying that I took that personally, right? He is dramatizing that through a visualization practice. Within the type of cognitive or motivational, you can have different things that you visualize. So what you visualize can be a process or an outcome. So a process might be, again, if we go to that Tiger Woods example, he is visualizing his swing progressing from start to finish. An outcome might be someone visualizing holding the trophy or running through the finish line. Those are focused explicitly on results. And there are legitimately pitfalls to only focusing on outcome visualization. And that's one of the qualms I have with some of the manifestation talk. If you only focus on the outcomes of the visualization, it can actually lead to apathy or lack of motivation in the short term. Because visualization, because of that functional equivalency of if we visualize it, it feels real. If you visualize just achieving the outcome, holding the trophy, hitting, not necessarily hitting the game-winning shot, but like if you just imagine the outcome and the benefit, it's like you've already lived it. And so every day, if you're visualizing that, it's like you're living, winning every day. And what do you have to strive for if you can already see it and you've achieved it every day? You can very effectively combine both approaches, and we'll talk about that quite a bit in part 2. The next thing we want to think about is the how of visualization. So are we going to visualize from the first person or the third person? So if you think about visualizing whatever sport you play, whether it's soccer, whether it's baseball, wrestling, if you're thinking about a play that you made, are you thinking about it looking through your eyes? You see your hands, if it's baseball, are you seeing and you're catching and throwing? Or are you seeing it from a third person perspective? So are you watching from above? Or are you watching from behind? I know for me personally, playing a lot of golf, you watch your swing on video from down the line and front on all the time. And so when I visualize, I usually see myself in the third person. And there's benefits to both. So first person, generally going to be better for performance and timing. So if you're a quarterback, for example, and you're visualizing yourself, you're going through your reads and throwing, you're going to get better at doing that process, at feeling your way through it and executing. From a third person perspective, let's say you're a gymnast. If you're looking at it from a third person, you're generally better at figuring out your movement patterns, improving technique, and looking at the technical side of things. And then finally, what modalities of visualization do you use? So it's called visualization. That's a bit of a misnomer. You actually engage all of your senses when you visualize. You use your eyes, you see things, but you also feel things. It's a kinesthetic thing. You can smell things, you can hear things, you can feel emotions. And at least for me, I use a lot more kinesthetic visualization, which is just feeling of your body in space, than a lot of other people. So an example of a visual, like the pure visual side of visualization, would be an archer shooting at a target. They're seeing the target, they're seeing the path of the arrow, whatever it might be. That same archer could also visualize by feeling the weight of the bow, feeling the tension of the string on their fingers, and then letting go. Probably a more common one would be a swimmer feeling the resistance of the water as they're swimming. That's something Katie Ledecky would do. When I interviewed Jim Furyk, and also when I was studying Tiger Woods, they both mentioned that they feel the golf swing in their body dramatically more than they visualize the shot. So they feel their body doing one thing to create a ball shape. And I thought that was very interesting. At the end of the day, though, the most powerful visualizations combine multiple sensory systems. So you're smelling the smell of the grass on the golf course. You feel what the grip feels like in your hands. You hear the birds or the people talking in the background. You see the shining of light on the ball before you hit it. The more emotions, the more details you can add, the better. And that's actually one thing I didn't touch on as well, is emotions. So you can also feel emotion from a visualization. So how do you feel? Do you feel anxious when you're on the first tee or when you're hitting the first serve? Or do you feel this sort of calm and collectedness? And that's something that we can practice and rehearse, but also generate. I wanted to take a quick second to talk about creatine. So creatine is one of the safest and best research supplements out there. It is shown to significantly improve muscle strength, endurance, as well as muscle mass. And pretty much every elite athlete that I know that does not have a sensitivity to it is taking it. I personally take creatine gummies. I purchased this with my own money. They're delicious. They're easy to take every day. And to me, they're a far superior alternative to choking down the grainy and chalky creatine powder. In the description and in the show notes, there's a link to my affiliate code, which gets you 20% off. I do get a small kickback from that, but I'm only promoting this because I truly believe in the product and I think it is very good and effective. If you're interested in that, the code is AthleteX and you can get your 20% off there. I wanted to take a quick second to talk about sleep quality and its importance for athletes. So if you listen to this podcast, you know that a good night's sleep is very important for your athletic performance. And recently, there's been a lot of good research around the correlation between air quality and good sleep quality. I purchased this Jasper air purifier with my own money about a month ago, and I've seen really good data feedback on my sleep quality and my time asleep going up. I believe that the only variable associated with that is this Jasper air purifier. So much of what we talk about related to sleep and related to performance is behavioral, but there's also things that you can literally buy to improve the quality of your sleep or the quality of your performance. I highly recommend this air purifier. I have a code AthleteX that gets you 20% off of it, which is quite a lot of money. If you're interested in that, I have a link in the description and in the show notes. Again, this is something that has really helped my overall ability to produce, and I'm pretty excited about that. Happy to share. Now back to the episode. I think it's important to go through a couple examples of athletes who have visualized and talk a little bit about the types of visualization they use to really hone in this point. So Jack Nicklaus is very famous for saying that he never hit a shot, not even in practice, without having a very sharp in focus picture of it in his head. So he did this thing where he would watch the ball fall in the hole and then see it come all the way back to his club face. This is very clearly a outcome, but also process focused visualization where he is in the first person because he's seeing this come back to his club from his stance. Steve Nash would use visualization before he shot every free throw. So you'd see him on the line, actually going through the free throw shot. And he is, I believe, has the second highest career free throw percentage of anyone of all time. To me, he also does something very unique, which we'll talk about in part 2, is he's physically doing the movement of the shot as well while he's visualizing. Someone else who did something similar was Lindsey Vonn. So before the ski races, you'd see her and a lot of other skiers look like they're doing a dance. And so they would actually be using their hands to model the skis, and they'd have their eyes closed and they'd be going through the whole race. She would do this the night before the race. She would do it just before the race. And they do it with very specific match to the terrain and the course that they're seeing. Another one, which would be more of a motivational type of visualization, would be Muhammad Ali. So he had this practice that he liked to call future history, and he would see himself winning. He would see the exact scenario that had happened, and he would bring that into the present. So he would be seeing the future. He would be seeing himself making history in the future. And he would, again, bring that back into the present. There's a huge list of athletes that have used visualization practices very effectively. And honestly, I think it's a bit of a bummer that they don't talk about it more. In my interviews that I'm doing going forward, I'm trying to elicit the visualization side and just learn more about that. Not something everyone needs to do to be successful, but I've found that more athletes use some similar tools to this than not. And even those that use it, they don't have the scientific basis, the foundation for it. So to me, we're in really exciting territory where we can actually do this better and more effectively than some of the best athletes, these high-level athletes that I'm studying and interviewing. Let's do a little exercise. So something interesting about visualization and how effective it is if you're already a good visualizer, you get more benefit from continuing to visualize. If you're not a good visualizer, if you don't have the prerequisite skill, you get less of a benefit overall. The benefit, or the good news, is that you can improve your visualization ability. And in part 2, I'll have some exercises around how to do that. Let's do just a mini assessment to help you evaluate your visualization ability, though, to begin with. So I want you to close your eyes, and I want you to picture yourself in your kitchen. Take a very deep breath and just really feel yourself relax. So when you're in your kitchen, I want you to look around. See the refrigerator, see the oven, and then set your eyes on your counter. On your counter, there is a little fruit basket that's filled with lemons. They're some of the most juicy, large lemons that you've ever seen. And you decide, I want to make some lemonade. You walk over to the counter and you pick up one of the lemons. You feel the sort of rubbery texture on the outside of the lemon and just a little bit of the oil that comes off from the skin. You also smell the citrus notes from the lemon as you pick it up. You take the lemon and you roll it on your cutting board. You can feel the juices inside of it just moving around. You take your sharpest knife. You hear the knife as you take it out of the knife block and you cut the lemon in half. And you see the juices run out of lemon and you smell the sharp, sour scent of the lemon as you cut it. You cut it in half, and then you cut it into wedges. And you take one of the wedges and you put it to your mouth and you take a bite. That is the end of the little guided visualization exercise. So this shows a couple things. One, a lot of people, myself included, even when I talk through that visualization, my mouth starts to salivate when I take a bite of the lemon. That is our psychological process or visualization having this physical impact on our physiology in our body. That is one way to show the power of the visualization. If you went through that visualization, there's also probably some things that stood out to you. Was it seeing the lemon or seeing your kitchen that was most clear to you? Was it the smell of the lemon? Was it the texture of the lemon? Was it rolling the lemon? Was it hearing the knife coming out of the knife block? This is a very high level evaluation of your visualization ability. So if some of the senses really stuck out to you, let's say your sense of touch. For me, I can feel the texture of the lemon. I can roll the lemon on the counter. That's very easy for me. It actually benefits me to focus more of my visualizations around that kinesthetic feeling, more so than scent or some of these other things. You also might find that maybe the auditory nature, like hearing the cutting board, hearing the knife, hearing your hand go through and take the lemon, whatever it might be, that might be a key part of your visualization. This is actually a benefit as well. I mean, you think about rhythm, you think about, for example, dribbling a basketball, there's a benefit to having a very powerful sense of auditory visualization as well. And again, I want to make sure I add that visualization can improve with practice, and it does vary. There is a small group of people that cannot visualize images at all. That's something called aphantasia. That's in around 2 to 3% of the population. But most of these people can still visualize other elements, whether it's auditory, kinesthetic, whatever it might be. So they can still get benefit from listening to this and also from going deeper into these things. So again, the key takeaways from this before we go into part 2 or the second episode is that visualization very clearly has its benefits. A lot of high-level professional athletes are using visualization. There's multiple different types of visualization. So we have cognitive versus motivational. There's also different ways or things that we can visualize. So we can visualize the process or the outcome. The way that we visualize or the perspective that we take can have different implications. So first person or third person imagery. And then the things that we visualize, so seeing versus kinesthetic versus auditory versus actually our olfactory, which is smell, or even our emotional state, can impact the quality of the visualization. While these series are going to be very in-depth, I did recently write a book on visualization, which goes way deeper into the specifics. So that could be a really great resource for you if this is also interesting to you. If you sign up for my newsletter, you can get the first 6 chapters of the book for completely free. Those first 6 chapters have all of the relevant content. The remainder of that book is really focused on specific exercises, specific use cases. So everything that you need to know about visualization is in those first free chapters. But if you want some additional resources, you're absolutely more than welcome. And I would love it for you to buy that book on Amazon. In part 2, we're really going to focus on the how-to, the nuts and bolts of visualization. So there's a couple different frameworks we're going to look into that allow you to create really consistent and effective visualizations over time. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next one.